Tonight's Habs versus Sens game had more scouts than you can count. Pair that with a recent article from Daily Faceoff outlining how Monahan could get a first-round pick and a lot of potential suitors for him, and you have a recipe for a perfect trade coming very soon. We got to break all that down. Plus, some of the top analytics minds in hockey said the Suzuki is a top 5 defensive center, and we're also going to talk about Habs versus Sens all on this episode of Habs Digest. Let's get the ugly stuff out of the way first, Jesse, because we got some juicy trade stuff to talk about later. So if you want to skip ahead to that, feel free. We're not going to hold you here for this Habs versus Sens game where the Habs just looked, to quote Mac Dumont, lifeless. Caufield got a point, so he's extending his point streak, even though he didn't score tonight, though he very well could have. That's his 20th assist of the season, by the way. Ties his career high he set 2 seasons ago in 20 fewer games, 47 versus 67. Kovacevic scored near the end, but this game was over before it started, Jesse. I felt like no one got it going for Montreal tonight. 3 straight losses, 2 of them being brutal losses to the Senators. I don't know, just looking up for the next few games, you got to think Marty doesn't like this. The lines were shuffling. I don't think anyone is happy with how this game went.
No, I think Caufield's pretty upset. Marty's definitely looking pretty upset, judging by the looks on their face during this game. I think nobody's really happy after this one, to be honest. Caufield, plenty of opportunities tonight, but, I think it's a lot of the time of us just shooting ourselves in the foot, right? We're getting on the power play. We're giving ourselves, an opportunity, but then, taking these penalties while we're on the power play. 2 of them tonight, just a couple of those times of just taking those penalties. Not only that, when we're on the power play, but just as we're getting back into the game, in the second period, Matheson taking an ill-advised one there. The third period, Xhekaj, I really wanted him to kind of improve a little bit on that. I think there's still a lot of time for that as well. But yeah, big part of the kind of that issue again tonight, right? And just, trying to, kind of look for the perfect play on the power play instead of just getting pucks in the net, just kind of playing that simple game. I really think the Habs really need to get back to that.
Yeah, there was a point there at the end of the second period. I think there was a lot of people tweeting about the game. Habs Digest account included. Go follow Habs Digest on Twitter at Habs Digest. Thank you very much. But there was a point where it was 0 for 5 on the power play with 3 shots and a shorthanded goal given up. And that shorthanded goal was one of the worst I've seen. It was 4 Habs forwards in the defensive zone. They took the face off. They all skated forward. Was it Shane Pinto or was it, I forget who it was. Yeah, I think it was him. And it just open in front of the net, just tucks it around Jake Allen. It was unbelievable. Just the lack of effort it felt like tonight. There were some guys who had some good stretches. I thought Armia, especially on the penalty kill, he's really impressed me. Of course, Caufield had a fantastic game. Suzuki still putting in that effort with 4 hits. Slav was a little invisible tonight. Xhekaj tried to get something going with Xhekaj. Didn't end up working out. But hey, you know what? You can't win them all. You're going to go through losing streaks. You're going to go through really bad stretches. There was a lot of lineup juggling tonight. Pearson's back. RHP was playing center for 2 periods. In a game like this, at the end of the day, when you look back on the season, this is just one of those weird games that hopefully you'll look back on and say, wow, I'm glad we improved from there. But let's talk about Suzuki a bit more, Jesse. And Andy and Rono, a lot of you guys, if you've watched the channel or you're on Twitter looking in the hockey stats sphere, you'll know Andy and Rono, and they like to talk about a lot of advanced stats, and they do similar metrics to JFresh, stuff like that, but they have their own metrics as well. And they did a list of their top 10 defensive forwards in the NHL. Now, this is based on their opinion, but again, they are very stats analytics informed, so this is probably heavily based on some of those metrics. But look where they have Nick Suzuki. They have him 5th in the entire NHL behind only Alexander Barkov, Tyson Forster. Shout out Tyson Forster for really getting a shout on this list. William Karlsson and Sam Reinhart. Again, Reinhart, I guess I don't really think of as a defensive forward, but hey, apparently he's been great. But look at where Suzuki is, Jesse, and it's not just Andy and Rono that are talking about this. JFresh has shown Suzuki at one point was in the 99th percentile of defensive wins above replacement. He's improving everyone wrong who said his defensive ability was gone after last year. His point production has stayed while his offensive advanced metrics have gone down. His defense has been on another level this year.
Yeah, and I think we're going to start seeing him in this conversation a lot more for the Selke, not just this year, but going forward. We're going to be hearing his name just kind of every year, so really nice to see for Suzuki there, kind of getting a little bit of that respect there, because if you look among this list of players, he's also, what I would argue, one of the better offensive, players out of this list by a long shot, right? I mean, obviously Barkov, Karlsson, Reinhart, and Suzuki. Other than that, right? So just to say that not only is his defensive game so well, but probably could argue to be ranked even higher because of his offensive output as well.
Yeah, for sure. And we know how Selke voters like to vote. They like to vote for a good offensive player that can also play defense. So, and Suzuki fits that bill. I mean, do I think he's going to get it over someone like a Barkov? Well, let's be honest. Alexander Barkov is straight up a Hart contender every single year, but Suzuki is getting better every year too. And the fact he's keeping that production with his defense is really awesome. 4 hits tonight too, tied for second on the Habs with Guhle. Oh, unbelievable stuff. So shout out to Suzuki. But time to get into the trade stuff. We got a lot about to talk about with respect to Sean Monahan specifically, because I really think there were a lot of people there tonight, not only to see Jake Allen, which is something we've talked about a lot, but also to see Sean Monahan. So this tweet from Stu Cowan said there's a lot of scouts in the Bell Center press box tonight for Habs versus Senators. Needed 2 pages. So you can see a lot of teams there. You see Dallas had a few representatives. You see New Jersey, probably looking at Jake Allen. You see Tampa Bay, who knows? You see Toronto, could be looking at either Jake Allen or maybe Sean Monahan or more. Again, this also might not be all for the Habs, might be a bit for the Sens. You see Winnipeg there, a team we've linked to Sean Monahan. Boston, we linked them to Sean Monahan. No Colorado, but hey, it is what it is. Of course, you see an Ottawa scout, but that makes sense. There's a lot of teams here, Jesse, Florida as well. So you got to think that these guys are starting to really pay attention to the Habs, of course, with Jake Allen playing, Sean Monahan, even Tanner Pearson. But this recent article from Daily Faceoff said that Sean Monahan is worth a first-round pick. Frank Seravalli's like, the Habs should come out of this with 2, one from the Flames and one for just this trade deadline about Sean Monahan. He lists, feel free to pause, take a look at this list as well. He mentions a lot of teams, including some teams we haven't mentioned, like the Panthers and Rangers. He also goes on to say that it's tough to think of a more ideal fit than Edmonton. We see Toronto, we see Vancouver, we see Winnipeg. But not only that, he backs up his first-round pick claim by showing some recent trade deadline trades. February 24th, 2020, Barclay Goodrow in a third for a first-round pick, 31st overall, and Anthony Greco. Paul Stastny, 50% retained in 2018 for a 2018 first-round pick, 29th overall, and a fourth, and rights to Eric Foley. That first-round precedent is there, Jesse. The scouts are out in flocks. It's just feeling like the Habs are really going to get that good return for Monahan as long as he stays healthy, and I'm all here for it.
That's true. And also there, coincidentally, when Jake Allen's there in net, I feel like the Edmonton Oilers would be a good fit for Jake Allen, right? And argument can be made for Sean Monahan as well, right? Because they have Connor McDavid. They have Leon Draisaitl, where his contract's coming up very shortly. They're doing well. They're very much in a pressure situation to win right now, to keep these 2 star players happy. They're doing everything they can to really do so. You have to feel like they're be motivated to make a move there. And, absolutely, I have to feel like, I'd agree with that. Kent Hughes isn't going to go for anything less than a first. And I wouldn't be surprised seeing a first and even something else with that, and even maybe like a fourth as well, right? Just because Sean Monahan, we know what he provides for this team, and that's barring, right, the Habs maybe wanting to keep him maybe as a third line center of the future. I can't think of a better third line center in the league really than a Sean Monahan sort of type, right? If you really want to win in the playoffs, like his numbers in the playoffs as a point producer is just unreal, even throughout his career, right? We sometimes forget just how much he has put up throughout his career, how intelligent of a player that he is, right? So, as these losses start to pile up, right? That's what changes, Kent. That's what makes these probability of these trades, especially with Monahan and even Allen by exception, that much more likelier.
Outproducing Johnny Gaudreau, outproducing Elias Lindholm. He's doing great things. And if you're Charles Lajoie and TV Aspal, him with Tony Marinaro, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Charles Lajoie is like, just give him 5 years, 25 million and call it that. And I think Tony was a bit caught off guard. 5 years, 25 for Monahan, as Tony said, someone who gets hurt a lot is a bit much, but hey, it's like objectively for his performance this year, it's not that insane, right? If he didn't have the injury history he did, that would be more than a fair contract if you can expect this kind of production from him every year for the next 5 years, even if he starts to decline. But yeah, at the end of the day, it is what it is. I like that you said Jake Allen's still a possibility for Edmonton as well, because I think people are starting to brush that off now that Stuart Skinner is on one of the hottest tears in the NHL with the Oilers on an amazing win streak. Stuart Skinner's been amazing, but again, what's their backup situation, right? Are they going to keep rolling with Calvin Pickard? Is Jack Campbell ever going to, I don't think so, right? So having that Jake Allen as a backup if Stuart Skinner starts to cool off could be really good. Final thing, I wanted to just mention a couple teams that we haven't mentioned before, the New York Rangers and Florida Panthers. I know we talked about Monahan being like an ideal third line guy, middle six guy. both those teams, do either of them particularly, like if you were the Habs and you were like, well, these two teams gave me the best offer, which one would you rather send Sean Monahan to? Would you rather send him to the Rangers or the Panthers? I have my answer, and it's the Panthers, because ever since 2014, I have a certain hateful relationship with the New York Rangers. But what are your thoughts there? I wouldn't mind seeing Sean Monahan wearing a Cats jersey.
Don't ask me that, Josh. I love Money Monahan way too much.
Okay, you don't have to.
No, that's it. Right. But the Rangers, they're gonna do their obligatory, trade deadline or kind of pick up for sure. So you definitely see, obviously they got everything going for them. They got great goaltending, great offense, right? So then adding a guy who's just got an all-around game in Monahan would probably, for a lot of contenders feel kind of take you over the top. He is that type of player. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that one happen.
Give me Capo Caco, and we'll talk. But yeah, there's a lot more stuff to come with Monahan, and you know what, Jesse, I'm starting to get on board with you keeping him. But again, it all depends on the return. If the Habs get a first and a fourth or something, like, it's hard to say no to that for a guy with his injury history, but at the same time, maybe he stays healthy the rest of his career. There's no way to know. There's a lot more speculation, a lot more rumors that are going to be circulating. We're still like over a month away from the deadline, which is crazy. And we're hearing all this stuff. So we'll stop the talk there for now. So that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. Did you enjoy? Did you like all the Sean Monahan trade talk? Leave your comments down below about where you think he might end up, and if you think a trade might be coming sooner rather than later. I'm Josh Gosse for my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.